Hello, I'm Julia Twigg from the University of Kent. My recent work has been about clothing and dress and its role in the constitution of age. And I've looked at older people, design directors in high street shops, and fashion journalists, and asked them about their understandings of the changing experience of older people in relation to clothing and dress. Are the rules about what older people can and can't wear? Are those rules changing? Are things different now from the way they were in the past? So by asking those kind of questions, my work relates to a number of other debates within social gerontology. Debates about the changing location and meaning of later life. Are we increasingly seeing older people united with the mainstream, a less differentiated old age than in the past? Is there a role for areas of life like consumption, clothing and dress clearly part of that, but other aspects of consumption as well, in changing how older people experience their lives in the West today? What's the role of embodiment in clothing and dress? And how does this relate to the complex interplay between physiological and cultural ageing that's one of the central themes, I think, in our understanding increasingly in social gerontology? I've also done some work about the role of clothing and dress in relation to people with dementia. And there are some very interesting questions to ask. Does clothing and dress help support various forms of embodied personhood that may continue to be important in the lives of people with dementia, even though some aspects of their abilities have been eroded? Does it change the kind of interactions that they have with their relatives or with staff? What role do clothes play in embodying the memories at a physical embodied level of who the person was and to an extent still is? So I've been very interested in looking at the ways the concrete materiality of dress, of clothes, can be used to explore the cultural constitution of later years. And that's really an example of what I think of as a much wider intellectual development, which has been the emergence of cultural gerontology. Now, for me, cultural gerontology is one of the most exciting and interesting areas within gerontology today. Social gerontology traditionally focused on frailty and on dependency. Now, those are very important subjects. I don't want in any way to take us away from those. And the social welfare and policy implications of those forms of frailty and dependency. I've done work in that tradition myself and I value it very much. But it's not the only thing we can say about later years or old age. There's a great deal more, I think, that we want to bring into the picture. And that's really what cultural gerontology has been doing and enabling us to do. Cultural gerontology has enormously widened the range of topics that we study within this area now. Gardening, travel, spirituality, music, dancing, yoga. There's no end to the aspects of the lives of older people that have now been brought into view by this new approach. And enormously influential, of course, has been the arrival of the humanities. Traditionally, the humanities didn't really look at later years. They were seen as marginal and not very interesting. But all that's changing. Partly it's changing under the influence of what's happening within the arts themselves. So we've got novels, we've got films, we've got theatre that explores the nature of later years and the issues that are raised by them. We've got people doing music and poetry. And it's also brought the analysis of these areas. So it's not simply that people are writing novels about later years, they're also analysing them and using the lens of age to explore the experiences in the arts. And that's enormously widened our understanding of the subjectivity of later years. We do much less in the way of focusing just on the lives of older people from the outside, those old people over there, as it were. And we're much more interested now in understanding the subjectivity and experience of older people themselves. So it's enormously widened also the theoretical approaches within which we analyse later years. Post-structuralism, feminism, ideas of performance, of representation are all to the fore now and have enormously enriched the toolkit with which we can look at later years. So I think cultural gerontology for me has really brought enormous variety of new approaches and new fruitful ways of looking at later years. People sometimes think that cultural gerontology threatens us with an apolitical analysis, that subjects like clothing, dress, fashion are superficial, frothy ones that threaten to take us away from serious engagement with the situations of older people. Cultural gerontology enables us to address these directly. So rather than undermining our political engagement, it in fact deepens our analysis of it.